let's get the ball rolling. I start with a warm-up question you guys haven't seen. I shared the panel sort of outline with you guys beforehand, but I'll start by surprising you. Just to check you where you kind of personally stand on regulatory sandboxes. I start with myself. I've been involved in a few, having worked in the UK. I'm a fan to a certain extent, but I also know it's horrendously cumbersome. So just there's a starting point. So what are some of your stakes? Have you experience on those? And are you kind of, do we have any naysayers here? That would be nice to see if there are people who are actually really doubtful about regulatory sandboxes. That will make a very good conversation, by the way. So maybe Greta, starting with you.
Yes, hi, I'm Greta. Maybe just as a quick background to open up the discussion and why Accelerate Estonia is in this discussion is because, as some of you may know, Accelerate Estonia is a program for helping companies overcome regulatory barriers. We're situated within the Ministry of Economic Affairs, and it has been from experience that now we lead within the ministry the effort to actually create the regulatory framework for experimentation and for creating regulatory sandboxes. And I say it comes from the need because we deal with companies that are either deep tech or they have some novel solutions that are yet either unregulated or the regulation is lagging behind, so it hasn't been updated, so they cannot actually enter the market. So we have to be sort of the bridge between the government and the private sector. So I'll dive into it a little bit deeper as we go on, but I have done some research, a lot of research on the global examples of regulatory sandboxes and how different countries have found solutions suitable for them. And personally, I too am a fan, which is why I think I'm the biggest driver right now of creating the sandboxes within the ministry. So yeah, looking forward to this discussion in more detail.
Thank you, Greta. Let's see if we have a fan club on stage. Helena.
Yeah, from my side, I haven't really been involved in a sandbox as per its definition you gave us, but while I worked in the Estonian government, at the government CIO's office, we worked with internally the digital services in the digital public services. And there we saw the importance of experimentation, but it's also about the objective of the sandbox as well, to enable the experimentation. And there have been and still are some initiatives that are similar inside government, that are similar to sandboxes, also to how to, for example, for AI, how and we test inside government different AI services and solutions for public services. So there are similar initiatives. I've been involved in, I would say more broadly, in experimentation, and also I'm a big fan of it. It helps public sector employees and officials to see a bit broadly, besides their regulations that they're also bounded by. It gives them also a bit of freedom to see what else can we do. So yeah, I'm a fan as well. So sorry to disappoint.
It's fine, it's fine. I expected that might be the case. And Tomas, all the way from Slovenia.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me here. For sure, I like sandboxes, but it was great to come in the middle of the night to the snowbox here, because we are an alpine country. We used to have snow. We don't have snow this year, but it's great to have it here. Well, I'm coming from business, and I'm in the public sector now, helping our mayor, because we are cooperating before when we are both the CEOs and in the companies, and it should be like a short-term, I would say, endeavor, but it's now 5 years already. We do a lot of different things and a lot of things that are on the cutting edge or on the edge of the also regulatory part. But I have to say that I'm a fan of this out-of-the-box thinking and also the sandboxes that are possible. One of those that also the Tallinn, the city of Tallinn was involved, and the city of Kran in Slovenia, as the third biggest city, was involved, and it was actually really comprised by the European Commission Joint Research Center and also Gartner Institute back in 2022, because we are the cities, 5 cities in Europe that were doing some sandboxing in the area of the smart cities. So it was Helsinki and Tallinn together, then Kran on our own project, and then Guimarães in Portugal and Rotterdam. So a lot of interesting stuff, but you get a lot of headwinds. So it's part of the story. But if you succeed, then at the end you can really move these limits, and even the regulation locally, I mean nationally, can always then come after you. So one of the latest one, for example, is we are I would say the mission, one of the 100 mission cities. When the European Investment Bank last year in Valencia in June came with 2 billion euros of the funds for these 100 mission cities. In Slovenia, for example, we had the legal framework that was not allowing us as the city to get to these funds. So it was a bit of a challenge on that one, but that was changed a week ago. So after that, when you are persistent, then a lot of things can happen. So yes, good to be there.
Thank you. Egert, anything additional you want to?
Well, I think I need to be politically correct. As a researcher, I need to stay neutral. Always question, always be a skeptic. So.
Very good. You're closest to a doubter we have here then. We trust on you. Good stuff. No pressures. Very good. Let's start from the wider landscape before then we will zoom to Estonia and making the thing real. There's quite a few benefits already, which we got from Egert's presentation, and some doubts, some cons as well. But there may be others, and let's dive into those. I'll pick one example from the work we did in Edinburgh, which I think is something which hasn't been mentioned yet. As part of the Data-Driven Innovation Initiative, they are running an organization called Smart Data Foundry, which basically pulls together open financial data from financial institutions, mostly from NatWest, and then some from other organizations. And Smart Data Foundry was used the Information Commissioner Officer's regulatory sandbox to test the impact of privacy regulations on managing real financial data from real people in innovation. Cumbersome process, as I said. One of the domains which I think is very interesting and could be applicable for other domains was that they wanted to see out what kind of implications does the GDPR and privacy regulation have when you want to create synthetic data out of real data. So is it a showstopper? Of course, it has to be taken into account, but how clunky is the process? And I'm glad to say that they managed to actually iron out some of the bugs, should I say, from the ICO's office, and also some of the naive anticipations they had about how easy it would be, which made it possible to then create synthetic data. And we probably all know that synthetic data is one of the ways to open up potentially sensitive data for wider groups of innovators in domains such as healthcare or indeed financial demographic info. So with that one example, let's see what other kind of pros and cons there may be. And to keep things rolling, I start now with Helena. So you are the first on the line. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I will maybe then take some of the cons of it to take down the enthusiasm. From inside public sector, as this is the domain I know the best, what we see, one of the cons for such experimentations or sandboxes also is sometimes the sustainability of such solutions that come out. Very often people go in with a big enthusiasm, let's try out, let's find new services. But there is not much of a bigger plan behind it. What happens when the experimentation works? How and we really develop it out? So sometimes some of these experiments die after the period is done, after the trial is done. So there's the larger question of how to really govern those sandboxes, who does what, really, like how's the bigger plan rolled out. It's very often, it's not that structured. So I think that's one of the cons that can happen. Other thing is that was mentioned was the costliness of sandboxes. It requires often extra work from the officials. It's almost always on top of your daily job. You will have to work on that as well, and that's a cost, and that's a problem of resource as well.
Yeah.
I think those are two big cons for in public sector.
Yeah. I think actually Egert's point about the sort of lack of formats.
Yeah, exactly.
Or agreed model is quite a crucial thing, because if you always do it bespoke, it's just really work intensive. Thomas, your take on the pros and cons?
I mean, again, coming from business and coming more in this optimistic way that everything can be done, right? It's GDPR, for example. For us, I mean, for me personally, it's definitely an opportunity. A lot of people see it as a hindrance, as a big problem, but at least European Union has a standard there, and we stick to it, and then we based on that. The challenge is sometimes with lawyers within, I don't know, the public sector or the others, who always, in a lot of cases, not always, say whatever it's not allowed is prohibited. And this kind of negative approach is a bit of a challenge, because we take it the other way around. Whatever it's not prohibited is allowed. It should be like that. Although here, the Republic of Slovenia has a bit of a challenge, because now we have a new law which is even more strict than the GDPR, which again, if it's something that we know it's going to happen, it's okay. But if you want to have in the public or private part the data, and then the decision making based on that data, you have to have data, anonymized in this kind of way. For us, for example, when we imposed the smart city card of the CityCraft card, which is an open loop, the first open loop card in Europe, in this respect, not only for the public system like Tallinn also has here, but for private, so all the public services as well as the private ones. The idea was that it can be used always and everywhere in the world, but we can take all kind of anonymized data for the basic decision making. So the mayor or the city management can have the anonymized data, and of course each and every user via the CRM can have their own data to the nitty-gritty details. Here, if this standard is there, and if there is a trust, and the trust is key in the public sector, then a lot of things can be done. Unfortunately, people, we all trust Facebook, Meta, we all trust Google and the others, but we don't trust to the public servants or countries. Yesterday, it's like 5 years of COVID-5, right, in Slovenia and also here in Estonia. And at that time, when our government says you should get vaccinated, nobody wanted to do it. It should be better to say, okay, nobody should do it, and then everybody would do it. So it's a bit of a challenge how to do it, and trust does not come over the night. So having the GDPR is a great thing, because based on that, then you need to add up on all kind of projects. And then each and every project that you have, of course, has to add up to that trust. And this sandboxing can help in a lot of cases, but again, NIMBY, I like the term, of course, because, try out a lot of things, but not with me. And that's a bit of a challenge when you want to have the smart cities done in a way, because again, we are not alone here in Europe. I mean, it's United States is there, China is much more there, and then we can all go back to the medieval years, right?
Yeah, very good. Egert, did you have to drop something from the presentation which you'd like to add at this point about pros and cons?
No, I think most of them have been already stated here by other panelists. And
very good. And Greta, you have the unfortunate chance to try to see if there's something which hasn't been said.
For me personally, having worked in the public sector for a long time, but also being on the other side of the bridge from the private sector, I do see that the biggest pro for the regulatory sandboxes and experimentation is precisely that this is a good way to get the data to see if regulations can be updated and how they can be updated, because oftentimes, as I understand, there are a lot of people from other countries here as well. Oftentimes, I believe for your case as well, is that the companies don't really get the chance to impose any change in regulations or even get to the decision makers. So if they are unable to prove their concept and show that this might actually make an impact on a larger scale, but we just need to get this small detail out of the regulation, get it out of the way for the impact to happen, then everybody wins. So I think the updating of regulations is one thing, but also, regulatory sandboxes, as you all know, isn't very popular yet. People don't know how to do them. There's a lot of talk about it. There's a big dream about starting these regulatory sandboxes, even within the European level. But I think that if for our case, one thing that motivates me to work on the experimentation framework in the ministry is that this will give Estonia a competitive edge, because first of all, Estonian companies can benefit from the regulatory sandboxes. They can actually test their solutions. The deep tech companies, I mean, we will aid our companies to prove their concept here so that they can go out into the world and become more successful. But also we will draw in other companies and perhaps they will stay. So we can create the extra, the added value for the Estonian economy as well.
Yeah, very good, excellent. Let's stick to that topic and connect it to, in a way, to the macro politics. Let's not go too deep into the gloomy times we seem to be living, but as part of the gloomy times, there's also quite a significant global push for kind of deregulating everything. Regulatory bonfires are being torched here and there and everywhere, whether it makes sense or not. And that at the same time is then combined with the fact that there's a sort of diminishing trust by people that the governments are treating them right and treating their data right. And that, I think, I see as a contradiction, because if there's no trust, there's no users. So if you torch all the regulation, where do you end up with that? So what's your views on how does the kind of a global geopolitical pressure influence this landscape, which is, as we have noticed, still quite in the early stages still. There's not a widespread proof that this kind of approach works. And if all the regulations are being tortured, there's nothing in the sandbox either. So what's the impact of that to the work we are trying to do? And if we flip it around, is that also then potentially an opportunity, like you said, opportunity for Estonia, but also opportunity for the whole of Europe to say that, hey, we can show that this can be done right and have regulation which both supports innovation and protects trust? Or am I being horribly naive here? So, Thomas, your turn.
Well, thank you. I think it's, okay, I'm not the expert in that area to some extent, but it's all about information. And current times, macroeconomic times, it's not about the armies and so on, but it's just, losing the competitive advantage over the other countries that in the old days, right, it used to be how much land do you have, how much, gold do you have, and so on. Now it's not the same anymore. I mean, even smaller countries like Slovenia and Estonia, we are pretty much of the same size. I mean, 2 million people for Slovenia, 1.3 in Estonia, right? You don't need to be big to be globally important or successful. And both countries really proved that in some areas. And in this respect, I believe these big countries have quite of a challenge because they were too good in the past and they were sleeping, sleeping beauties. And now these macroeconomic terms changed. In this respect, I would say that what you did, in Estonia, heads down to you with the digital transformation because you were forced to do it in the past. We are not so lucky on that respect. But on the other hand, if the regulation does not kill you completely, then it's easier to be quick. I'm coming from, for example, from the blockchain technology, not cryptocurrencies as such, but blockchain technology is here and it's the future for sure. And a lot of knowledge is in both of our countries. In Slovenia, for example, we were the founder of still the biggest, let's say, cryptocurrency exchange in Europe, Bitstamp, that started back in 2011, but because of the lack of the regulatory part, they moved out to Luxembourg 2 years ago, 2 years later, which is unfortunate, And they use which bank? They use the Estonian bank, LHV Bank, for the transactions. So with the reason, because you are so good that it's predictive, it's innovative, it's the cutting edge, and in this respect, I was really happy to come over for the first time because you are so well, set in the world that you have to see it, right? How far we will go? It depends how well the countries are. For Slovenia, for sure, it's the only country with love in its name, right? We are great in sports and so on, but if we are too sleepy on our past achievements, then others overtake us. And in this respect, hopefully, our government will do also a lot of things in the right direction. It's already done. We have the supercomputer and all these kind of things, but if you don't apply it, then it's a problem with taxation and everything else. It's great to live in Slovenia, like it is in I would say, in Estonia, but it's after 5 o'clock for sure. Till 5 o'clock, it's a little bit different. So that's the homework that we need to do in the right way in the public sector.
Yeah, very good. Egert, what's your take on the kind of, are we just a sort of a Goldilocks size? Can we combine some nation states and Europe to really drive innovation on this? GDPR certainly is, for all its faults, it's seen globally as a success story. So we have a regulatory superpower as European community.
Well, when it comes to the international dimension, I think what really matters for us here in Estonia or Slovenia or elsewhere in Europe are the developments taking place at the European Union level. So we all know that there is a kind of, ongoing process of full harmonization of regulations in different domains, be it environment, finance, consumer protection, and so on and so forth. But when we come back to the topic of the panel, the sandboxes, then we see there is a kind of a rather opposite stance taken at the EU level with regard to the sandboxing as such, that they kind of have informal approach, providing maybe guidelines which are non-binding. So there is no harmonization of rules for the sandboxes yet. So they're kind of facilitating stakeholder dialogues between member states to come together, discuss, share knowledge, experiences, best practices. But what we can see, kind of a new trend, is that, as Greta also mentioned, that we see this kind of cross-border, maybe EU-wide sandboxes emerging. I think it was 2 years ago when the first European Union regulatory sandbox for blockchain technologies was adopted. And we see elsewhere as well these kind of regional sandboxes in the Caribbean or the Pacific Island cases. And the same UK that I mentioned, at one point they came up with the idea to establish global regulatory sandbox for financial services. So yeah, for today's topic, something to contemplate maybe for the smart cities and Tallinn and Helsinki case, so this kind of a cross-border sandbox would be something, an option for the future maybe.
Very good, very good. Greta.
Yeah.
Has all been said?
A lot has been said, but I would say that if we take the defense tech example, then if we don't give our companies the chance to test locally, they will have to find other places to do that. There is the Ukraine battlefield today, but do they need to do their initial testing already on the battlefield, or can they get some results maybe a bit earlier, so that they can already deploy fully developed technology to the battlefield then, which then Estonia also can perhaps procure to our own defense capability building. So if we give, if we don't give the companies the chance to test, then we will eventually lose them.
Yeah, that's actually quite a topic. The combination of these potentially rather large new push for defense innovation and funding with regulatory sandboxes. A bit of a scary but interesting topic there. Yes, Helena, you have to close with this.
Yeah.
Let me take some questions. Get ready, guys.
I will maybe take another angle, not to repeat what you guys said, but from the regulatory point of view, looking what's going on at the moment with all the chainsaw eyes, trying to add all the legislations and so on, I think in some way it gives a good opportunity for sandboxes as well. Because like Red also mentioned in her previous answer or intervention, is that sandboxes help to make informed decisions about regulation, and not just to go and add everything with a chainsaw without thinking 2 steps ahead and rating chaos. And yeah, in Estonia we have a pretty good trust in government or the public sector as well, in our justice system. That would hurt a lot. At the same time, there's a great push to see that we need to reduce some regulation as well. We don't tend to get rid of legacy regulations. We tend to just pile up new things, new requirements. So here we would see an angle for regulatory sandboxes as well as a way to modernize the regulation itself as well, and not just by having it done by assumptions, but by testing things out, having fact-based basis on these argumentations, why to change things. So in that point of view, I see there's an opportunity, but yeah, are we smart enough to seize that opportunity?
We are already zooming in on Estonia there, so that's good. But let's first check any questions from the audience or anything on the Slido which you would be worth sharing.
Yep, okay, cool. My mic is on. So we got 2 questions regarding AI. First one, the European...
By surprise.
The European AI Act includes regulatory sandbox provisions to promote innovation. How could this be of interest at the city level? And the second one, can we speed up developing of regulatories using AI?
Oh, those are both really good ones. Let's actually start with the last one first. Can we speed up development regulations using AI or maybe AI-driven regulatory sandboxes? That's a frightening and interesting idea. Egert, you as a researcher are just the right person to try to tackle it.
I mean, AI for designing regulations. I don't know what Pandora box we will open that. So, I really don't want to think about it. But the second thing, Sandbox is for the AI as technology. Yeah, the European Union has adopted an act and provided their provisions for that. And I think in Estonia, we have been ahead of time with that to some extent, because I think it was in 2021 or earlier when the Minister of Economic Affairs adopted the Sandbox for specifically for the AI and how to support the application of AI solutions for the public service delivery and in the public sector in general. So yeah, we have been doing something already there, and definitely this is one avenues or one technologies to be tested in the future, because we don't know yet what are the applications, whether it's in the education field or whether it's in the healthcare, where we see sandboxes, but we add another layer of the AI there. And the same for the future, I don't know, with the drones, right, as you mentioned, in the civil use, how we can use them in the future by learning in the sandboxes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. I see that actually AI is being already used pretty actively. For one, for cyber security activities and incident management, a lot of machine learning is being used to automate some of the mundane tasks, to open up resources for like human resources for other actual like analysis activities and more important ones. We also have the CRAT, the helping robot for the Estonian government, which is arguably not the best example at this stage, but I mean it's there. But also like a lot of analysis for analysis purposes, AI is already being used. But true is that we don't have like very many specific solutions for the government to adopt AI. But I would like to also highlight an interesting example from Singapore, where they have. I just visited Singapore on a study trip, and they said that they have specific like quotas that each government institution has to adopt AI in some ways, and it's mandated that they use AI, and they have the freedom to choose whatever tools they can develop their own, they can procure whatever, but they have to tick the box that they are using it. It's an interesting parallel for me.
Very good. We can't take from everybody here, so what I'll do is to leave that city question to be the last one, because we are zooming from the Europe to Estonia, and then let's zoom to the cities as the last topic. Just saying the idea of, in a way, automated regulatory sandbox response mechanism might be an interesting way to really scale it up without too much cumbersome work for the civil servants, but that depends, of course, on the regulation. So we know that regulatory sandboxing hasn't been used much in Estonia, if at all. And we have touched some of the ways in which it could benefit the country. Maybe first, why you touched some of the topics there, Egert, in why it hasn't been used here. It's been kind of flexible landscape. Are there other reasons why it hasn't been used? And I'll flip the coin to Helena to start with that.
Yeah, I think I'm owing back maybe here a bit to my first answer, actually. That's a bit, I think, applies why in Estonia. Well, one thing is, the regulation itself, but it's one of the things is the lack of structural format. Also, who should be responsible, for example, on government level, who will coordinate it? Yeah. I mean, we have Accelerate Estonia, we have the government CIO's office, we have we have the innovation team inside the government as well. So we have different instances doing similar things here and there. So who would be responsible for that? How the governance works here? So we, as Estonian government structure, is very decentralized in that sense. It's quite difficult to have a central ordination or central ordination that is not just very soft, on voluntary basis, but more in a structured way. The other thing is definitely the OST side of things as well. As if we look at the public sector, we're trying to edit even thinner than it is already. So here it's an extra OST, and every such a experimentation project in Estonia, every now and then, Accelerate Estonia is a great example there. They have to prove their existence every now and then once again. Why do you need to be there? It's something that very often comes as top of things. So I think these are one of the main things. Probably also procurement. Also, if you open things to private sector, then the question is how to choose, how to provide equal opportunities to all the companies to participate, how to make sure that you don't create regulation that benefit only a very small segment and won't give any benefits or even give disadvantages to others. So yeah, there are many whys, I think, here why.
Very good. I'll stick with the Estonian panelists here because you probably know the situation better. So I have another question for you, Thomas, later. Greta, you want to add to that?
Yes, I think the main barrier to as to why Estonia doesn't have regulatory sandboxes yet is that we don't have a framework to actually alleviate the regulatory requirements even for a short period of time. And this is a very touchy subject that I've had discussions with the Ministry of Justice for over a year now, and we're finally getting somewhere on how to enable this in a legal manner, so that no basic rights will be harmed. There will be no all the risks are managed, and you can prove that you can conduct your testing and experimenting in a safe manner for the environment, for everything else. So I think this has been the biggest barrier. I would like to just make an example here. The financial inspection in Estonia has a regulatory sandbox, but what it actually is a program where they basically tell the company how to comply with the regulations. So they aren't actually able to test their solution, they just are being informed. Okay, so it's not a regulatory sandbox.
Yeah, very good. It's a regulatory information service.
Yeah.
Thomas, what could Estonia learn from what you guys are doing in Slovenia, for example, in the international work you've been part of?
Well, probably a few things, but if you're daring, you can succeed, and we learn a lot from Estonia too. The latest one being, for example, that Ridango from Tallinn took over our best, I would say, transport data company, Lead Transit, and we are together also in this smart city card, and this is also one of the things that we envy you, right? But if you go back, let's say, just quickly to this AI thing, that happened over the night and quickly. For example, we know Italy and some other countries banned DeepSeek over the night. So a lot of these things, and then it's either you are in a silo or you want to do something differently. For us, for example, as the city of Kran, we in the past, because we were not able to finance some things because of the limited budget, we came to the idea to maybe use the blockchain and mint the NFTs, non-fungible tokens, to actually, finance a particular project. And there was a question: is it allowed? I mean, can we do it? And we called the Ministry of Finance of the Republic of Slovenia, and we said, just, our finance director, that you should ask in the right way. Don't ask if it's allowed, just ask if it's prohibited, right? They asked them, and then the answer was, we don't know yet, but we are thinking about it, and then over the night we just minted them. Yeah. And it succeeded, it's there, now this is the name of the game. Yeah. So it's good that you are daring and you do it, but of course you have to have somebody on the top. For us, it's our mayor, who has different lives. One of them is also that he's the president of the Ice Hockey Association of Slovenia, and he says everything is possible. I mean, if we beat the United States of America in Pyeongchang Olympics, as small Slovenia, 2 million people compared to the United States, then we can do a lot of things, and don't tell me that something is impossible. So if you have this kind of approach and you have a backup that even if you do some things on a brink of the legally okay or not, then it's good because you succeed and you really make these barriers bigger. Yeah. If you don't, then you have this kind of effect. You can lose a lot of people, talents, moving out of your country. In Slovenia, in the past decade, 10,000 people moved every year. This is like half of the newborns, for example. And then they go to the better places, like Estonia, and the other players. And this is something that it could be a national catastrophe if you don't do things rightly on the right time.
Very good. Thank you. We are running, time is flying, you know. I have still questions here we can't go through. So we need to start to wrap it up. Apologies for people. Do we have really million questions on slide or we never took?
We have quite a few questions, but obviously you're the moderator, you decide now.
Are you okay to go over 2 minutes?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, shall I just give a quick one? Would the regulatory sandbox solve the problem of regulation ambiguity? Do you see that sandboxing would benefit from parallel drafting, i.e. giving machine-readable regulations alongside natural language regulations?
It's kind of two questions, but in a way it's the same. Yeah. It's one question because it's kind of about can we harmonize both the development and implementation of regulation through these sandboxes? My short answer would be yes, because it's a practical example, practical experience. A practical experiences are the way with which things become standardized. But that's, as you heard, I'm an optimist. Are there other takes on the topics? Is that also one of the ways to make this real? If we can really make these regulations something which is, should I say, easier and more predictable when they are implemented. So, takes on that. Any volunteers?
I would maybe say that that if you do the experiment in one place, say in Estonia, then and change the regulation based on the data that comes from the experiment, then that would make a good example for the other European countries as well, because within Europe, every country looks at each other. You know, how have you done this? How have you solved this? How's Germany done that? And if there is already like a precedent set, then that would help probably then harmonize like the cross-border legislation as well.
Yeah, very good. My take on the AI question again would be that because often these are a question of resources. Also, applying regulation is a question of resources. You have limited resources in people. So in that sense, AI-driven helpers can really support a wider adaptation of regulatory or experimentation approaches, because then you could get rid of some of the resourcing bottlenecks we have in our public sector organizations. Final one, we haven't touched cities here, and there's a question about cities. Earlier, how do you see, what is the kind of a role between the cities and the national level governments in this? One domain, I guess, is that, cities are, really in day-to-day interactions with people in a different way than the central government often is. But are there other ways? Thomas, you coming from a city, do you have a
definitely. I mean, the cities, like in the business, you have customers, the other companies, and here cities are the nucleus of the society, right? And a lot of things can move fastly in cities than on the governmental level. Unfortunately so, but nevertheless, that's the name of the game. And the problem is that if you're too fragmented, then a lot of things can go wrong. Even the European Union, if you do something in Brussels, why to reinvent the wheel again on the national level? Because we are losing time and energy for everything. For the cities, I would say European Union here has a very good, I would say, the sandbox, partially also regulatory sandbox. This is 100 smart and carbon neutral cities by 2030, so 20 years before like Kyoto and Paris. And a lot of regulation is there, a lot of money is poured in there. Kran is, together with 2 cities in Slovenia, part of that, like you have also one of your cities, part of. And these kind of things can be really add on for the citizens, the in vitro testing.
Okay, very good, thanks. So, how do we feel? Do we believe more or less, or are we even more ambiguous about regulatory sandboxing after this discussion? I probably would say I'm on the same level. Greta?
Same, but more motivated.
Very good. Helena?
Yeah, I would use all its words on Fuse, but at much higher level.
Excellent. Thomas?
Absolutely energized and looking forward to the happenings.
It's been a sort of encouraging panel for the last half an hour, but let's enjoy while it lasts. Egert?
I'm still wary about what's going to happen, and especially with the AI, which is creating a lot of uncertainty.
We didn't manage to flip your researcher hat
No,
to a fan hat.
You didn't
Very good.
redefine my soul. Yeah.
Excellent. It's been an honor. Thanks a million, guys. I think we are kind of between you and is it lunch? Oh, that's a dangerous place to be, so we stop here. Thanks a lot.
It's a pleasure. Really.
Thank you, Greta.
Thank you again, Egert, Greta, Jarmo, Thomas, and Helena.